Hi guys, it's Miss Hale. I am going to be showing you a foursquare for adding and subtracting fractions. I know you're so excited. So we're going to do an example that actually has two mixed numbers in it. I might do a second example video, possibly, because there's two different ways we can simplify, and so we're going to go over one in this video, so I may do another video to show you the other simplifying, but we shall see. So in order to start the process for adding and subtracting fractions, we have to create that's right, a foursquare. So we're going to go ahead and create our foursquare on our paper here. Okay, I'm making it real big for you. So the first little clue, remember we have clues that go into each box to help us to remember the steps of the process of adding and subtracting fractions. So the first clue that we have in the first box is write the problem. And we ask ourselves, is it the same or is it different? Same or different? And that's a question. Okay, same or different. So we have to write our problem first, and then we can ask our question same or different, because what are we looking at whenever we're asking ourselves, is it the same or is it different? We're looking at the denominator, because the denominator tells us what do we know we have to have in order to add or subtract fractions. Well, both wholes have to be cut into the same number of pieces. What part of the fraction tells us how many pieces our whole is cut into? Your denominator. So your denominator has to be the same in order to add or subtract fractions. So we have 2 1/2 plus 1 3/4. So this is our problem. So we're going to look at our denominators and we see that they are different. So what does that tell us? That tells us that we need to move to the second part of our foursquare. All right, so we're going to now move to the right. Remember, we zigzag through this foursquare. So the note that we write at the top is LCD. What is our LCD? That's what we're looking for, okay? So now what do we create in order to find the LCD? That's right, we make a tic-tac-toe board. For what numbers? Well, go back and look. What are we trying to make the same? We're trying to make the denominators the same, so we're going to make that tic-tac-toe board we're going to make one for 2 and one for 4. Which number do we start with? We always start with the smaller number, okay? The smaller number can sometimes create the bigger number, so it causes us to do less work. So we're going to start by counting by 2. We're going to list the multiples of 2 in this tic-tac-toe board. So 2, 4, 6, 8. Now what do I notice already? I already have a number in common. So this is 2 and this is 4. If I come across this number in my tic-tac-toe board, then I don't need to make the second tic-tac-toe board. I can. And then I would start with 4. And then I can see here that I already have a number in common. So my LCD is, I no longer am guessing, I know that my LCD, my least common denominator, is 4. So now I know that I need both of these denominators to be, that's correct, 4. Okay, very good. All right, so we're going to zigzag down to this box. What is the note that we write in this box to help us to remember the process? Multiply, then add or subtract. All right, so now what is the purpose of the multiplication? The purpose of the multiplication is to create the equivalent fraction, the fraction that has the same value, but that has the denominator of 4 instead of the denominator of 2, because we know that we need the denominator of 4 in both of these fractions. So we're gonna, remember well, I should have done this before, but normally we would break these apart so we could create our order of operations, so I'll go back and do that. So 2 plus 1, remember we take the whole numbers and group them together and the fractions and group them together. Sorry, I didn't remember to do that. So we only focus on the fractions right now. We know how to add those two numbers together. Why do we have addition right here? Is because we're just going to put these pieces back together in the very end. So that's what we want to do. All right, so here we go. We're going to now take both of these fractions and we're going to multiply them to get a denominator of 4 in each one of those fractions. So we're going to start with whatever fraction we have there, 1/2. And the little equation that I taught you to help you to remember how this process works is we have 1/2 times blank fraction bar equals blank fraction bar. What do we know? We know that we need the denominator to be 4. We need this. This is going to be our ending fraction that we're going to use to add or subtract. We need 4 as a denominator there. Now we have an equation down here that we can fill in a blank. So 2 times what number gives me or equals 4? Well, I go back to my tic-tac-toe board and count 1, 2. That means I can fill this in with a 2. 2 times 2 equals 4. So now whatever I do to the denominator, I also have to do to the numerator. So 1 times 2 is 2. So 1/2 is equivalent to 2/4. And I can now put 2/4 in place of 1/2 in this problem up here. Now I'm going to do the exact same thing with the other fraction here. So I have 3/4 times blank fraction bar equals blank fraction bar. I know that my least common denominator was 4, so I need this to be 4. 4 times what number gives me or equals 4? Well, it's 1. Whatever I do to the denominator, I also have to do to the numerator, okay? So 3 times 1 would be 3. So notice this fraction did not change. It stayed the same. We really didn't have to go through this process for this fraction. I just did it to show you that normally if both fractions have a different denominator, you have to go through that process with both fractions. So you have to multiply both fractions times whatever number you need to get to that common denominator there. All right, so then we would just bring down the plus 3/4. So now this is the problem that we need to work out. So now down here underneath here, I'm going to write 2/4. Just making sure you can still see. 2/4 plus 3/4 equals, and we know that the denominator denominates and stays the same. So we're going to go ahead and write that fraction bar and write that 4 in there. Because remember, once we've cut that whole into the same number of pieces, then we're just putting those pieces together. And then we're going to count how many fourths do we have. Okay. So now we have 2/4 plus 3/4. If we have 2/4 plus 3/4, that gives us 5/4. Because 2 plus 3 is 5. Now, 5 is what type of fraction? You are correct. It is an improper fraction. So we're going to go to the right and we're going to simplify this fraction. So here we're going to write simplify. And to simplify, we divide. Okay? Normally we divide. Now I'm going to split this into 2 pieces. I'm going to have you draw. When it's an improper fraction, I want you to draw the fraction, okay? So we're simplifying, we're bringing this fraction over, 5/4. So we're gonna draw 5/4. So we have a hole, and the hole is cut into how many pieces? You are correct, the hole is cut into 4 pieces. So we're gonna draw our hole, and we're gonna cut it into 4 pieces. 1, 2, 3 lines creates 4 pieces. Well, how many fourths did we have? Well, we have 5/4. Well, here we only have how many fourths? 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4. So we're going to color in 1, 2, 3, 4, but we still have, we're not quite to 5 yet. We have to create another hole. And remember, your holes should be about the same size. I know they're not perfect because we're not computers, but we can try. Okay, cut the other hole into 4 pieces, and now we can represent that 5/4. Okay, so we have 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4, 5/4. Now, what number did we actually just create here? Well, if we have 4/4, we actually have You are correct, 1 whole. And then in this fraction right here, we have 4 as our denominator because that's how many pieces it's cut into. And our numerator, how much we actually have, what's shaded, is 1. So 5/4 is equivalent to 1 1/4. So now we're going to go back to this expression that we wrote over here. And now we're going to solve it. We've actually done all the work, the hard work anyways, because we did it in all the other boxes, okay? So now we're just going to circle, pizza slice, solve, bring down. So 2 plus 1 is 3. And then bring down everything else. We can circle, pizza slice. We already did all the solving already, so we're just going to put the answer that we got right here. So this would be 1 1/4. We have to write the simplified answer there. So whatever we got right here is what needs to go in here. And then we're going to bring down that 3. So now we have 3 plus 1 1/4. Well, we know that we're going to just take those whole numbers and we're actually just going to add those together and then just leave that fraction tacked on. So that gives us 3 plus 1 is 4 1/4. So the answer to this problem is 4 1/4. Awesome job, guys.